welcome to a brand new video. So this video is an introduction to the Cloud Firestore database offered to us by Firebase. So if you don't know this already, Firebase actually offers two types of databases. The first one is the Firebase Realtime database. So the Realtime database is actually something I've covered in depth and extensively over the course of the last few months on my channel. So I have a lot of tutorials on it, and especially how to use it with things like Python. However, I have not yet covered the Cloud Firestore, so this is where we're starting today. So this video will hopefully be the first video in a series surrounding Cloud Firestore. Cloud Firestore is an amazing NoSQL database, and this video will hopefully kickstart a series on this database. Now, what is this video and how is it really related to a series? It is actually completely independent. This video is going to be a quick start into the Firebase Cloud Firestore. So you're going to learn everything related to the NoSQL database, what a NoSQL database even is, what's a document, what's a collection, how does all of that really work, and really the sort of structure, data types, and everything that really makes Cloud Firestore what it is. So without further ado, let's get started. So in front of me, what you've been seeing for the last minute or so is the Firebase console. So we go to console.firebase.google.com, and this is our landing page. Now you will see that I have some really very messy sort of projects on this. So this is my YouTube account, and this is what I use to film videos, as well as, really just play around with things. It's not my personal account by far. Anyways, so to create a new project, all you need to do is simply click Add Project and you give it a name. So we can call this Cloud Firestore Demo Quick Start. I mean, that's a mouthful, but okay. So let's go. You can enable Google Analytics. It's really not an issue, so you can choose the default. So as we wait for our project, let's discuss one important point. So we said that there are two databases offered to us by Firebase. And as soon as it comes to mind that, oh, Firebase gives me two databases, they're both actually NoSQL databases. And we're going to talk about NoSQL in a minute. And they're both, on the cloud. They're both by Firebase. What's really the difference, and how do I really choose one? Now, this isn't really a question that can be answered super easily. So choosing one of these really depends on your needs, as well as your budget, in case you're actually going to scale. Now, I did forget to mention, both Realtime Database and Cloud Firestore are really free for beginners. I don't want to say beginners, like free when you're getting started. So let's say you're a freelancer, you're a developer, you make your own apps. This is definitely free for you. I think it doesn't really start to get costly, or you don't really have to start paying until you've probably reached about millions of users, or something, maybe 1 million. I'm not really 100% sure, but I know that they give you a lot of space. So it's really not until your startup really starts to scale that you really have to worry about the Firebase pricing. Now, like I was saying, so the Cloud Firestore versus Realtime Database, how do I really choose? So I do have a video on specifically this topic, so how to choose between the two. Like I said, it depends on your needs mostly. So there are a series of questions you ask yourself before starting any project. So do I need this type of query? Do I need shallow queries or deep queries? Do I need more complex queries? Do I need a more hierarchical structure? So this is really like a collection of questions that you ask yourself when you're trying to make this decision. So if you're interested in that type of, analysis, more in depth about these two databases, be sure to check out that video. I will link it in all cases. So our project is ready. Let's click continue and wait for our homepage. So this is our project, you could say dashboard or overview. So this is a brand new Firebase project. Now, if you have used Firebase before, you know that it provides a host of features like authentication, two databases that we were just talking about, storage, hosting, functions, machine learning. And these are all really powerful and really unique. So Firebase, for me, is something I believe is amazing for every app developer ever. I think it provides everything in this sort of service that makes everything so much easier. So managing your users through auth, storing some files on the cloud, your database, and so on. I really don't want to get too in depth about Firebase and why it's useful, but it's really important to note this in general, I think. Okay, so we said we want a Cloud Firestore. So going to Cloud Firestore, we would go here and let's see what we have. So you get some promotional stuff about Cloud Firestore, other features, some resources, and really you just click here, create database. Now for our purpose, let's start in test mode. Test mode means you can read and write to a database, I believe for 30 days, meaning that you can, just really play around with it without really having to worry about being authenticated or logged in. So now we wait for our Cloud Firestore database. So let's talk a bit about NoSQL. So if you're familiar with NoSQL, then this should be a breeze for you. You've probably maybe used Realtime Database before, or maybe MongoDB. MongoDB is probably one of the most popular document-oriented databases. When I say document-oriented, this is one type of NoSQL. So NoSQL databases do come in several different types. You have graph NoSQL databases, document, and so on. So I have a 5-minute video on that. I've covered them, but there's really no need to watch it if you're just interested in Cloud Firestore, since Cloud Firestore is document oriented. Now, what do we really mean by NoSQL? How does it differ from SQL? So, SQL, you have these standard tables. Tables have rows and columns, and you have, foreign keys that link you to primary keys in the other, in other tables, and that's how you really have all of this information together. Now, NoSQL comes a bit of a difference. It's actually schemaless, meaning you don't really have to follow any sort of schema for the data. I'm gonna highlight this specifically when we start creating data. So for now, it's just words being thrown around, and I do understand that can be confusing. So really, that's really what it is. It provides us with so much more flexibility. You don't really need to follow all of these standards that SQL imposes. The querying becomes easier. The changing stuff is more flexible. It is highly scalable. Cloud Firestore, for example, is highly scalable because Google itself, or Firebase itself, provides you with that sort of scaling across multiple servers without you having to really worry about what's going on behind the scenes, without you having to code that backend stuff specifically. So all you need to do is just worry about your database. So yeah, I think the idea of NoSQL should really embed itself further as we go through this video and as we really go through the data. So this is what we have. Here it tells us to start a collection. So let's see, what is a collection? A collection is basically a collection of documents. It's a group of documents. Documents are essentially what we like to call in Cloud Firestore, this is equivalent to a data point, to I don't want to say a row in a table, but something like that. Your document can represent a person, it can represent a product, if this is a database, for a shop. It can represent a book if it's a database for a bookstore. So it's a single data point. That is what a document is. And a collection is simply like a collection of people, a collection of books, a collection of products. So it's like that. So we can start a collection actually, and let's call it people. So here they're telling you can have a collection users, and it would contain a unique document for each user. So that's like an initial intuition that you can get when starting your collection. Then you can create a document ID. So you can set this yourself. So you can set this to be like John, or you can actually use auto ID, which is generated by Firebase itself. Then this is what a document looks like. So these documents, how do they really work? So we said a collection is a group of documents. Documents, on the other hand, are actually like a series of key value pairs. So they're very JSON-like, you could say. So here you have this document ID, and this document ID contains several fields. The fields, like I said, are a series of key value pairs, and the values usually have a specific data type. So now I can say name, it's of type string, and it has the value John. I can add another field, so this is data about John. I can say age, and it can be a number, so they don't have integer and double, and you can say 34. You can add another field, and let's see what other data types we have. We have Boolean, so we can check whether John is employed, and we can set that to be true or false. Now here we're doing this manually. Obviously, in a developer scenario, you will have to be coding a client app that's doing writes to your database. So basically, you have an app. Every time you get new data, you're writing new stuff to your database. it's really, very straightforward. So like you would with any other database. You have the map. The map is similar, you could say, to a document. It's like a JSON structure where you have also a series of key value pairs. So now I'm gonna say addresses. So let's say this guy, he lives in multiple states. So I'm gonna say, we have like address 1. Maybe this isn't actually the best idea. So let's say address, and then here we're gonna have city, and now we're gonna have New York City. So this is his address. We can also have his street, and then we can just say like street 4, or I'm not sure. I don't know how streets really work. So that's really a map. We can add another field, and then let's see the other data types. We have an array. So this is why actually I was like, this isn't a good idea when I was doing address 1 and address 2, because here you can have a series of addresses or maybe a series of jobs. And now this could be, he works as a developer, but he's also, maybe he's also a designer. So these are his jobs. This is an array. The difference between an array and a map is basically a map is a series of fields with values, so key value pairs, whereas an array is just simply a series of values with no keys. So keep that in mind. Here the key is jobs, the value is the array, and then inside the array we have some values. Here the key is address, the value is map, and inside the map we have a series of key value pairs. It's really how it works. Another data type we can have is actually null. So you know how null works if you're a programmer. Timestamp, so you can choose like any date or time. Another you can have is actually a geopoint or a reference. So these aren't really like our main goals right now, so we can just skip over this. And a reference is actually similar quite to a foreign key, but you don't really use it much in a NoSQL database. So let's just move on and save this document. So here's how this document looks like. It's very JSON-like. So one thing to note is that if you're migrating from maybe another NoSQL database that is document-oriented, you can export your, for example, MongoDB data into JSON, then import JSON into Cloud Firestore. So that's one thing you can do, but let's just forget about that for now. So here I have my collection of people. It contains one document with this ID. Then we have, for this document, we have an address, we have a name, John, we have his age, employed, his array, and actually his map of addresses, so city, New York City, street 4, his array of jobs, and that's really it for John. Now I can add a second document. I'm gonna have an auto ID. I'm gonna give this one a name and let it be Jane. And now I'm gonna illustrate exactly how this schema list stuff really works. So look at this. We have all this information for John, little to no information about Jane. I don't even need to include the name field. I can also do this thing. So age, instead of it being a number, I'm gonna say it's a string. And I'm gonna say that Jane is old, and I'm gonna add this, and this is okay. So here I have an age, which is a string. Meanwhile, for John, his age is a number or an integer, and it's number 34. And this is okay. Why am I stressing this? Because in SQL, in theory, in SQL, you know that you have to have the same data types, or else you are committing violations, or you would get some errors. Here, no, this is definitely allowed. Age here is 34, and here for Jane it's a string. Now here address is actually a map here. For Jane we can add an address and it's also a string, and let it be New York simply. So like I said, this is a NoSQL, this is schema list. Sometimes we choose to follow things by convention. So I can choose to have the same fields for John and Jane and every other person. So I can say I want every person to have a name, age, employed, address, jobs. Or I can do something completely different. I don't even need to add a person. Look at this. I can add a document, auto ID, and here instead of name, I'm just gonna say product code, and this should be like a number, and let's say any random number, and then product, and I'm just gonna say that this is actually like a table. I'm gonna save this. And this is so okay. This is so allowed. So here I have a product and a product code. How is this even related to name, age, address, employed? This is okay. This is a NoSQL database. Like I said, you can do whatever you want. But we tend to do things a bit more normalized just for convention and to sort of ease the reading part from the database. So assume you are writing to the database, you're writing everything into this people collection, then you're querying from it and you search for people and you get a table. So the people, coding the write functions, the read, the queries, are just going to be super mad. So yeah, that's really why we sort of follow certain conventions. But like I said, everything's allowed. It's a NoSQL database and it's really schemaless. Okay, and what this NoSQL stuff really does is it provides us with flexibility and scalability, like we said. So like we said, a collection is a group of documents. So let's forget about this one. So actually, I just deleted the collection, whatever. I wanted to delete the document, but anyways, basically I can just delete the document here. Okay, so now I have a collection of people, and now I want another collection of products. Or let's say, yeah, okay, products. And I want here this to be like auto ID and then name, table, and so on. I can create a chair, I can create whatever I want. These are different collections. So like these are separate. They're different groups. However, you can create a collection inside a document. So one thing to note, you cannot nest documents inside each other. You cannot put a document inside a document. You can put a collection referenced inside a document. What does this mean? Maybe I want to store for Jane all the details of, for example, like all the comments she's left on her friends' posts on Instagram. So now I'm gonna start the collection, gonna call it comments, and now what I'm gonna do, give it an ID, and then this is like the first document, so I'm gonna say comment, and like beautiful photo. Okay, and now I can add another document and also auto ID, and just say comment. And like in this one, the comment is actually nice pic or something. So let's backtrack a bit and see what we have here. Let's go back to the origin. We have a collection of people. My first person is Jane. What Jane does, she has an age, her age is old, and she has an address, and it's New York. She also has a bunch of comments that she's left on her friends' photos. And you can access these comments by really going deep into what Jane has really done. Why do we put collections inside documents? Why do I reference a collection inside my document? Why do I want to store all of Jane's comments? Let's say I want to extract all of Jane's comments. This would be one easy, simple query for me to get. And this is where things differ between NoSQL and SQL. In the case of SQL, you'd need to, done some SQL queries and really some joins between the tables and all that. Here, no, you're storing all of the comments that Jane has left inside Jane's data point, inside Jane's document. You have all this info about Jane. You can start another collection. If you want, you can save all the property that Jane owns. So property, and Jane owns like name, and let's say she owns a cabin somewhere, I'm not sure. Then, more property, and now this time she owns like a home somewhere. So you get the idea. You really get the idea. You should get the idea. So here's what we have. We have Jane, and inside Jane I have, direct info about Jane, like age, address, and all that. But also I have I have a collection with all the comments she's left for her friends. I have a collection with all the property that she owns. This is analogous to doing the following. For products, here I have a product. I said products. Okay, so I have this table. I can start a collection for it, and then inside this collection, for this collection, I can store all the reviews for this table. This is a product. And now let's say I'm coding a web page, and I'm writing that this is a table, and there's like all this data about, the price, the color, the wood type, details, shipping, I'm not sure. So details about the table. They're all on one page, but also the reviews about this table are on the same page. Rather than querying multiple SQL tables, in this case, all I need to do is simply query table, get the info about table, and then get the info about its reviews from a collection. Now you're saying, isn't that kind of messy? It's actually just a one way to really make queries so much faster from NoSQL and so much more flexible and scalable. So that's really it for NoSQL and sort of the concepts behind it. I really hope this video enabled you to sort of get started with Cloud Firestore and really start to dig deep in terms of structure and how it really works. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next videos where we're actually going to start coding and working with Cloud Firestore, and I'll see you in that next video. Bye bye.